Algebra 1, Lesson 62, Square Roots, Higher Order Roots, and Evaluating Using Plus or Minus. Now, don't get too excited, because on your homework you're going to start seeing problems that say use a calculator to determine the square root of something to a certain amount of decimal places. We will be skipping those problems, so if you ever run into them, just skip them. We'll be doing different exercises in class to kind of get that point across. Now, let's talk about square roots. By definition, a square root is simply any number multiplied by itself to get a number. We'll use 4 as an example. So if we take 4 and we wanted to find the square root of 4, we're looking for the number times itself that will equal 4. We know that 2 times 2 is going to equal 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. So essentially the definition of a square root is that if you were to take a square root and square it, you would get that number. What this means is if I took the square root of 4 and I multiply it times the square root of 4, like this, I would get the number 4. That matches the definition of a square root. If you don't believe me, let's go ahead and work this out. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 2, 4. Now, this definition leads into not really so much of a problem, but something that we may have not realized before. And that's that square roots can be positive or negative. Now, before we said the square root of 4 was 2, right? Because 2 times 2 equals 4. What if we take negative 2 times negative 2? What does that equal? That also equals positive 4, because the negative times the negative cancels out and gives us a positive number. 2 times 2 gives us 4. So when we look at the square root of a number, like the square root of 4, and the book asks you, what is the square root of 4? Well, there's 2 answers. It's plus or minus 2. And we write it just like that. We put a plus sign on top of a minus sign, put 2. Our answer is plus or minus 2. So that's how square roots work. And then a quick way to do square roots is just like this. If I have the square root of 79 times the square root of 79, what's the answer going to be? Well, I don't have to figure out what these are because it's the exact same square root. Any square root, like we said before, times itself is going to equal the number. So the square root of 79 times the square root of 79 equals 79. Now let's see where the book takes us. Now we have to talk about higher order square roots. So if we're talking about higher order square roots, what we're talking about are cubes and fourth roots. So inside of every square root is a little invisible 2, saying that we're looking for the 2. Now if we come across a number like this that has a 3, that means we're looking for a cubed root, which means we have to find a number times itself 3 times to equal the number 8. The way we can do this is through factoring. We can write a factor tree. 8 will factor into 4 and 2. 4 will factor into 2 and 2. Once I get a group of 3 numbers, I know that 2 times 2 times 2 is going to equal 8. So one way to think of it is the number in the crook is the group size you're looking for when you factor. So if I'm trying to find the square root of 8, or the cubed root of 8, I just have to factor until I get 3 of the same number. Once I get 3 of the same number, that can become a whole number. Now I'm going to do this on a bigger number. Oh, and then the same is true for fourth roots. So for example, if I had the fourth root of 16, I would factor again, but I need 4 numbers to complete my group. So 16 is going to be 2 and 8. 8 is going to be 4 and 2. 4 is going to be 2, 2. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4 fours, or 4 twos, which means the fourth root of 16 is also 2. So when it comes to higher order square roots, the number in the crook tells you how many you're looking for to complete the root. Now let's do this on a bigger problem. And then the interesting thing about about cube roots is cube roots can be negative as well. If the root is negative. Now, if I were to take negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, that would equal negative 8, which would not work. However, if I have the cube root of negative 8, then my answer is going to be -2, because it would factor into -2, -2, -2, which would all multiply to give me a -8. Let's see here. What other examples can I do? Let's do evaluation of plus or minus signs. So in our homework, we're going to get problems that look like this. So here they've already given us the plus or minus. So when we start simplifying this, we'll go ahead and start with the left side first, since that's familiar, we know what to do there. For here, since the negative is not included with the 2, 2 squared gives me 4. I apply the negative, that gives me -4. Here, the negative is included with the root, so I take -3 times -3, which gives me +9. Now here, I have plus or minus the square root of 4. Well, the square root of 4 is 2, and like I was saying before, it can be plus or minus 2, which they've already told you. So now I have plus or minus 2. So I'll go ahead and solve this from left to right. -4 plus 5 gives me 5, and then I have 5 plus or minus 2. Now how do I do plus or minus 2? It's very simple. You get 2 answers. So if I do 5 plus 2, my answer is 7. If I do 5 minus 2, my answer is 3. And you just write your answer as 7 or 3. Or you could put 7, comma 3. I prefer to put the word or. I was going to put comma 3 because that's what the book has, but I like the word or. You can use the comma or the word or. But just know when you have to evaluate a plus or minus sign, that means you're going to have 2 answers, because you have to account for if it's a plus or if it's a minus. That's it for today's lesson. If you have any questions, let me know on Moodle.